Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Friends, and where we just connect you with all kinds of special people doing really amazing work when it comes to transformation and self-understanding, understanding of the self and how we can create a better world for ourselves and for everyone else out there. So I have a very special guest today. She is been in the media for many, many years. She's a coach when it comes to mindfulness, been very active with mindfulness and the media. But what we're here to talk about tonight is peace and nature, because Suzanne Jewell is an executive at a sanctuary in South Miami. And it's called the Patch of Heaven Sanctuary, where I didn't even know about this before. So we're going to talk about that. And I wish I would have known. I don't know when it opened, but it's a place where you can really experience the outdoors, be with nature, commune with nature, and find out more about yourself and your inner peace. So welcome, Suzanne. I'm really delighted to have you here. And when I heard about you, it was just like I had to get a hold of you. I just had to contact you and say, please, we want you on our program. So Suzanne, how did this very, very unusual, interesting place come about? And I think it's been around for a little bit now, right?
So Patch of Heaven Sanctuary has, in the current founder and his vision, been in this realm that it's now taking the shape and the form that it is since 2008. He bought the original 10 acres. They belong to the Matheson family, who are the founders of Key Biscayne. It was their summer forest dwelling. They used to leave Key Biscayne and go down to July and August to live in the original 10 acres. That original 10 acres is part of an old growth Florida forest, which is a hammock, and it is endemically unusual and original to Florida. And the gentleman, who he and his wife are philanthropists and hashtag nature lovers, purchased that original property in 2008. They then bought an adjacent 10 acres in 2009 to create a sanctuary of 20 acres. That was old, not old growth forest, that was shade container nursery. So very industrial agriculture, black potted plants being sold by the gallon. And they created with their visionary horticulturalists, Robert Del Cid and Fred Hubbard, a regenerated 15-year project of rewilding what it would mean if we actually were able to help Mother Nature a little bit. So we are now a 20-acre sanctuary that provides refuge for trees, bees, birds, bats, butterflies, buildings of the historic variety, and beings of the two-legged variety, the humankind. And my role as the Chief Experience Officer there since February of this year is to activate and reconnect humans with nature, one mindful walk, one tree, and one breath at a time. It is our belief.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's our belief that if we can do that, we really do hope that what people might feel once they experience and immerse themselves in the space is that if they take that dose of the nature pill, their calm will decrease, their calm will increase, their anxiety will decrease, and that they may actually care for nature and care for the planet much more mindfully by becoming more conscious of it.
So why don't we take a look right now? I just want to visit the sanctuary. And so we're going to get to do so right now through the magic, of course, of video.
Yeah.
Suzanne Jewell here, the Chief Experience Officer at the entrance of Patch of Heaven Sanctuary.
quite a visit, Suzanne.
Yes.
I'm sure that it makes people, anybody that sees this video will say, I just want to get down there and I want to experience it. Have you found that a lot of people that go there, they don't really know what to expect until they walk in and kind of go through
We
this
are
part?
curiously even though we've technically been around for 15 years, we became a nonprofit in 2018, but we are curiously still one of the best hidden gems in Miami. There are gobs of people who don't know we're here. We're kind of happy about that because we don't necessarily want there to be too much of an influx. We want part of what your experience to be is a bit solitary by inviting the peek around this corner, the peek around that corner. I'm always intrigued. I'll tell you what I see, whether I'm doing an actual guided mindful nature immersion, which we do, and I do that with teams a lot or with individuals or with groups, but just watching people's face when they actually get to the parking lot, and then watching them when they check in at the Welcome Center. And then if I catch them about 20 or 25 minutes in, because that project that's on the video, we haven't built yet, like that's going to happen by December, but the 20-acre sanctuary is still there. I watch people's faces and their shoulders and even the way they sit and stand shift by about 20 or 20 minutes in nature. It's stunning to see humans land and be where they actually are and not be in the monkey mind of the past or of the projection of the future, but have the body and the mind actually arrive in the same place.
I love what you're saying because it is something, everything shifts. We're all, I think, so caught up in movement and activity. And, even if you're meditating at home or you go somewhere, which, this is all important, there is something really added when you do go and you connect with like the trees and the animals and just being outside. Do you feel in a sense that since COVID, many people have, really was out of necessity, wanted to get outside and took to the parks and went to the beach and went to places. And so now in a way they're searching for ways that they can do this and have this experience.
I can speak most directly from my lived experience. And in that TV gig I used to have, that was a big job that put me on a plane 3 weeks out of the month. I ended up burning out. I experienced panic attacks. And without this research that we've shared here, because that research came out during COVID about the fact that 20 minutes in nature will reduce your levels of cortisol, which are the core of your stress. In my call to put my, what I call tush on a cush, which is how I became both a practitioner. So I went through a 2-year training at Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center in mindfulness meditation and neuroscience of the ancient practice of the Satipatthana Sutta. But what I did just out of my own call was I started hanging out and taking off my shoes, walking around in parks and laying my body on the ground and putting myself next to a tree. And in the midst of that, I recalled that, when I was in 6th grade back in Michigan, where I grew up, I went to a nature center for 6th grade that was an 83-acre place called Blandford Nature Center. So this was in my bones and it became a return call. And then the circle of life for me during COVID had it that I ended up through a flood. I became a modern day Miami refugee of a non-named storm. My home was flooded. I was very dear friends with the Lama at the Open Awareness Buddhist Center in El Portal. And I ended up taking the vows of renunciation and refuge and living at the Open Awareness Buddhist Center for 18 months during COVID. And I lived in a boathouse and paddled daily in the little river and became friends with manatees. So my whole path that the divine led me on was come back to nature, come back to nature. So the answer to that is, not only do I know that's true of others coming to seek through us, it was the pill, the nature pill, that started to heal my soul and my mind.
I love that story because I feel that there are so many people that do have some kind of a story that dates back to their early years, maybe that connection with just silence or that connection with just feeling good when you're, again, when you're out there just in a park or somewhere by the ocean. So in a sense, would you say that more people are coming back to that, or they maybe haven't found it yet, but they are not as you have? You've obviously been on a real, path for a long time, but people are yearning for something to, again, to make them whole again?
I think that sense, whether you look at the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy's book about loneliness, you look at the rising rates from Gallup in unhappiness, you look at the status from the American Institute of Stress, and then you look at what I call, this is my own coin, OCD, and I call it overly connected disorder. We all have overly connected disorder, and our inability to arrive in the moment and be with what's here, including and not eliminating the agitation and the discomfort and the unease of being human at this time in a global pandemic and everything else. I personally believe that nature is calling us and saying, I am the place. You know, the Buddha, if anyone looks into the roots, enlightened under a Bodhi tree. And when he was sitting with Mara and having all the temptations, not unlike the Christian tradition of being tempted by Satan. So there's a lot of mythological story origin telling between the two that are similar, with lust and power and control. And you could have all these things instead of the path. The Buddha did eventually enlighten, and Mara said, there's nobody here to witness you. And he took his right hand and he put it next to him and he said, let the earth be my witness. And he taught in forests and he died under a tree. So for me, this particular path speaks to one of the most earth-based ways to grab the divine out of the sky and root it in that capacity that Pierre Teilhard de Chardin speaks of, where spiritual beings having a human experience. And I personally believe it's less about transcendence and more about embodying that while you are in this gift of carnation. And while you're walking around as a bag of bones wrapped in a sack of skin, be who it is that we've been waiting for, because no one else is coming. We are it.
So you don't have to go live on in an ashram, though that would be very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say you don't have to travel to India, but I've traveled to India so many times and I've had so many powerful experiences, as many Brahma Kumaris have, because our headquarters are in India, in Mount Abu, India. And so what I'm taking from you is wherever you are, just do it. But it does help to have a place like a center or having this sanctuary. And I mean, I'm just wondering, is it something that you would expect people to come to regularly? Or because it seems to me more like a place that you would go, I don't want to say once, not once at all, but is it something that people, once they go, they make it part of their life? It's a little bit far for some people.
We're in the midst of that right now. Part of the reason we're creating the Mindful Pocket Park is to actually help people create a practice, and a practical practice. When you come and that park is there, you'll download the Nature Pill app. And it's going to help you immediately and first tune in on a scale of 1 to 10. What's your level of calm? What's your level of anxiety? Put your hand on your heart and describe 2 words of what's going on in your heart and your mind. Because in Pali, heart and mind are not cut off. It's only in the West that we separate the heart and the mind. And then you'll go through the sensory station of sight, naming 5 things you see, and it'll help you tune into being present. 4 things you hear in the sound garden. 3 things you smell in the scent garden. 2 things you touch, one of which will be a Buddhist prayer bell. And then 1 thing you can taste. And that will get you through about 2 minutes or 3 minutes per station. You'll then walk into the meditation circle, and on the app, you will then be prompted, sitting on a beautiful meditation mushroom made of teak, to take a 10-minute guided practice of either be the tree, be the butterfly, or be the rock. And the tree teaches you to recognize that if you looked at your bronchial tubes and touched them with your hand, they're trees. And the trees and us live in what the indigenous wisdom call, and so does Buddhism, right relationship, or Aini, interconnected belief and breathing, that we breathe in the oxygen they offer, we breathe out the carbon dioxide they need, and we have an interdependent, interwoven relationship with every living being on this planet. Our hope is when you're done with that, so 10 minutes and about 15, the app will then say, hey, You said your calm was a 2. Has it changed? You said your anxiety was a 9. Is it any different? You said your word was rushed and overwhelmed. Any difference? The hope, because we don't know, is that we will help you start to begin to build emotional awareness, greater capacity of checking in. Oh, this is what I'm feeling. And then the dawning of, I just went and spent time with my senses, and I meditated with my eyes open. I sat for 10 minutes. I actually feel differently. So we're hoping that not only by coming once, you'll begin to learn that, and you'll engage then with the rest of the 20 acres, how you did in the first 20 minutes. But our true hope is that we will start to create, rather than transactional, I come once every 6 months, every year, that we will actually start to teach people that if you took your vitamins today, did you take your nature pill? If you took your vitamins, why didn't you take your daily dose?
Yeah. Well, I love it. And I agree with you. And I would like to move into a place like that. And I did actually live, in the woods near wilderness when I was much younger. And I do remember those feelings, though I wasn't very self-aware, or I wasn't really working on self-awareness. There's always more self-awareness than self-awareness. There's no end to it, is there? So I like a lot what, you're talking about is a practice where you just make this part of your life. Do you feel with this whole mindfulness movement, which you've been involved with, and it seems to be like you're blending the two, nature and mindfulness, right? That a lot of people, they maybe listen to something one day, but many people aren't really practicing it. And that's really the next step for everyone.
Yeah, practice. This as someone involved in your tradition and making that choice to take a path, that practice makes progress. It's never about perfection. And it's really about that gorgeous gift of committing to turn toward your heart and literally carving out those moments to drop in and check in. It's truly, in my tradition, called metta, or loving kindness, or karuna, compassion. It's about turning toward that tenderness. And it's funny because we care for our pets, and we care for our lovers, and we care for our yards, but how often do we actually water the seeds that are in our soul? And one of the things we're also finding—
I think people try, but don't always know what to do or where to go. There is a change, though. There really is a change, though. Would you say in our, I don't know, can't say the whole world, but I would say the whole world. So there's many speakers, right?
I would share this.
For a way of life that's different from what they've known.
People where I teach, I'm a startup coach at Babson College's Women Innovating Now Lab and their Center for Women Entrepreneurial Leadership. They have me bring in mindfulness as part of that leadership training. I teach at Miami-Dade College's Idea Center and part of their Scale Up program, which teaches young founders. I come in and help them learn to not only build self-awareness, but understand the capacity for focus. Miami-Dade County Public Schools Department of Mathematics has brought their leadership team to Patch to do mindful nature immersions. And then just last week, the National Institutes of Health came out. I'm a bit of a science geek as much as I am tied to the spiritual practices. I'm fascinated that science is catching up with the ancient practices with modern neuroscience. And they came out with something that really surprised me. In the world of mindfulness, it is highly recommended that there be at least 8 weeks of training to attempt to establish a practice. The neuroscience has shown 10 minutes a day of meditation can help rewire the neural networks in your brain. This research showed that nature-based mindfulness, so everything I just explained about the park, paying attention with your senses, attuning to the living beings, for people who can't sit in a silent room and have the lack of stimulation and meet that noise that happens of the monkey mind, can often deepen their capacity and therefore commit to a longer path of training, because nature helps calm down the overstimulated body and the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can actually arrive at the capacity of one-pointed focus. And whether that focus and that anchor is breath, or whether or not it's a chant and a mantra or a rhythm or a single seed sound of Om, it helps the body find a way to actually land. And that's what the research showed. And I was stunned because it said nature-based mindfulness may be more available to some people who tend to be overstimulated. And I'm one of those people. That it might.
You sound very energetic to me, which is
I
really,
am.
I mean, your energy level of all the things that you've done, it's really something. I'm really impressed with all that you're involved with. And so you've obviously learned how to be able to handle a lot of things all at one time.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that would signal stress, wouldn't it? People that
Yes.
are, doing too much. In fact, there's this whole thing going on right now where people right in their jobs are saying they're doing less. They want to do less. They were so, I don't want to say dedicated, driven. And
Yep.
do you think, there's this kind of a move to sort of withdraw today, which
Yeah, I think that's a
withdraw with sincere, I don't want to say sincerity, but withdraw with understanding oneself and what the soul needs. That's what
I
see.
think that
Yeah.
phrase that I also do a lot of posts on LinkedIn who knew that, but I'm at this odd intersection of a business corporate person who got here not because I'm a yoga teacher, but because I burned out, and then I put my tush on a cush. That quiet quitting that is occurring beyond in addition to the Great Resignation. I honestly think it's about being human at work. I think this is the waking up of humans saying, I'm no longer to be a cog in the wheel. You need to take my humanity into account, which is my wellness, my well-being, my capacity to be replenished, and that I'm not just a cog or a box of productivity. There needs to be socialization and the opposite of isolation, connection, community. Some people have work wives and work husbands. We're creating family connections at work that we don't have sometimes at home. So I think work with the people who are bold enough to come to Patch and come to me around the mindful leadership work that we offer. I think that work is becoming a place where wellness is starting to be prioritized. And the question is, those who don't adopt it now are going to be the ones left behind.
Yeah, it's definitely time to just jump in and say, I don't know what it's all about. Maybe I've never done it before, but I'm ready. And I think that the readiness is coming because things aren't working in people's lives. There is so much stress when it comes to families, what kids have been through the last couple of years. And so people are coming to it as a result of some, things that they've experienced, which is probably the way it always is in the world, right? Not everybody just goes out and seeks like you did, or what you said you went through something, and then you got back to what you sort of felt all along was the right way. Do you see this in a sense? I mean, I personally feel, and a lot of people that I know, that this is really maybe even the beginning of a major shift in our society where people just all want to jump in and change their lives and go within and connect in new and different ways.
It's a powerful inquiry that you just offered. And, when I go do a 10-day Vipassana silent sit, that's an insight, experience, and a commitment. And oh my goodness, do I meet my dragons and my demons? And then do I also experience other kind of revelatory things? And at Patch, there's something that I think, and I believe nature is a metaphor in many ways for this. I think humanity is going through a butterfly experience. So follow why I believe this. A butterfly first is a caterpillar, and its eyes and its focus and its body and its belly and its legs are all on the earth. And it only is looking at what's right in front of it. And then one day, some sort of an inner call invites it to climb up the stick. And it shifts its direction from ground only, or what's right in front of it, and it begins to climb up the stick. And then something else inside of it too calls for it to start wrapping itself in this thing called the cocoon, which is the chrysalis, which it becomes the pupa. And what is really interesting is that the butterfly completely goops into goop. I mean, it dissolves from what it was. And yet there are literally something inside of its DNA called imaginal cells that hold the key to it growing a butterfly body, to it growing wings, and it has to trust that metamorphosis and that transformational alchemical process of dying to what you were. And then as it starts to find and follow that energy to break through, interestingly enough, if you are a little kid learning about this, a lot of times people will bring these little things home to have the kids learn about metamorphosis. And they will feel bad if only one of the wings of the butterfly gets out, and they'll go in and they'll try to peel away the cocoon. And a butterfly can't fly if you do not let it break itself through the cocoon. Its wings won't be strong enough to actually support its body in the air. And so I personally believe that we as humanity are going through our own metamorphosis from the earth to whatever that's going to look like. About, is it that we're flying to planets? Is it that we're flying? Who knows what that is? But my insight practice and what I'm seeing occur is that, yes, those of us who are walking earth at this time in this form are alive to see a process of human evolution and spiritual awakening occur that is unlike anything that has ever occurred.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I think it's maybe this is the time for us all to, or as many as are out there, that many that realize this or begin to feel this, to go from being the caterpillars to the butterflies. It's time to fly, isn't it? It really
time to
is.
sprout our wings.
Yeah.
It's time to sprout our wings.
Is such a special time. It's a time of just world transformation. And I just always feel, don't look at what's negative out there and what's terrible out there, but just look at the possibilities and look at what we can all do to be part of this. And a good way is what you're all about with all the work that you're doing, of course, with this beautiful sanctuary, this patch, the patch of, it's called of heaven, forgive me, patch of heaven sanctuary in South Miami in the Redlands.
Yep.
So I'm going to definitely get there soon.
You have to
interview you and meet you through Zoom. I just want to go take some time, and I'm sure there'll be some other meditators from the center that are going to say, oh, let's all go together. We like to take little field trips. We call them kind of like yogi field trips where we go out.
We would love to have you come, and I don't know when this will air, but I will mention, just because it's something we'll be doing annually now. This week, the International Peace Day by the United Nations.
Yes.
And that is going to be recognized by us. We're actually going to invite people to do a silent peace walk, and it will be barefoot. So you're going to ground and actually kiss the earth. One of my teachers, Thai Thich Nhat Hanh, who passed in January, really engaged in that practice. We're also going to paint little wooden log medallions, and we are going to create a ficus tree, which was not quite a Bodhi tree, but a ficus tree that will hold everyone's prayers and wishes for peace. So even if you can't come to that day, which will be this Sunday, the 25th, anytime you come afterward, you'll be able to offer your prayers for peace. And that tree is going to hold all of our wishes, because I truthfully believe, morphing on Gandhi a little bit, we have to be the peace that we want to see in the world.
That's exactly it. We don't have to ask for it or beg for it. We have to just be it. And I could talk with you all day. You have so much to share, so much positive energy to give to so many. And it's just a pleasure getting to interview you, really.
I'm thrilled that we connected.
Look forward to seeing you.
As do I.
Yes.
And please let me know.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yes. Be well.
Take care. Thanks. Bye. And I want to thank Mita, our engineer. She's truly, in real life, is an engineer, but she handles so much, including technical directing of this program and many other programs, events, and much more at the Brahma Kumari's Meditation Center.
And may you all be blessed. Thank you.
Beautiful.